Echo and the Bunnymen, Pete.
Yeah. Is that who it is?
Legends.
Pretty serious subject. We're talking home invasions.
Yeah. Well, not just home invasions. So, welcome to Pandora's Box. That's our title of our new segment here on That Radio Show. We're trying to bring you the issues that others prefer not to talk about. And obviously, we did a bit of that last week. And had really what can only be described as a huge response, to be honest. Apparently we went viral, so that's a first for me. I think it's a first for the show.
Yeah.
And I loved that it did, because it was about something that matters so much. So firstly, I'd like to thank the people of Berwick and Pakenham and Narre Warren and just generally over there in the east for helping me out with this story, for their bravery and courage, really, because they came forward and told a lot of their truth to me. Regarding a subject that is quite difficult to talk about. It is, because even though I'm not a fan of political correctness, I am on the side of right, and I want to do the right thing, and I wanted to help the community, and that's why we brought the subject up. I've always been a fan of facing hurdles head on, and that's what I was trying to do with this subject on the show. And the response, particularly from Law and Order, has been really appreciated by me. I was contacted by a lot of Vic police officers.
Yep.
And also some from the intelligence community in Victoria. And their information has knocked me for six, to be honest, because obviously their insight's incredible. So firstly, I'm going to address the problem of, yes, I'm going to say the words again, gang crime. The epicenters of gang crime, because last week we heard from Jason Wood MP, the MP for Latrobe, a massive fan of his. He's a great guy. He wants to be tough on law and order, and that's definitely where I come from as well. And he rightly told us that the epicenters for gang crime, particularly Sudanese gang crime, is the Far East and the Far West.
Yep, of Melbourne.
Yes, in Melbourne. However, I've found out new information this week from my Victoria police contacts that there's another Sudanese gang crime target, and it's really not where you would expect, and that's in Toorak.
No.
Yeah, and the officers have told me that there's one street in Toorak, just one street, we're not going to name the street for obvious reasons, where there's been 3 home invasions by Sudanese gangs in the last month.
A home invasion is a terrible crime. It's absolutely frightening.
Yeah, very much so. So I asked them why. Like, why is this not being talked about? And the answer that they gave me kind of gave me chills, really, I have to say. So it appears that while the good folk of the West and the East are busy reporting this and discussing the incidents out of concern for their kids and their teenagers, which is, I think, where most of us are coming from, the residents of Toorak are not doing that. And have a guess why. It's a little bit related to you, Pete, this one.
Oh.
They're worried about it negatively affecting their property prices. So they don't want people to know that there's a Sudanese gang problem in Toorak.
Right.
So now we do know. So there you go. So I'm just going to let you sit
I've got no property in Toorak.
No, me neither, strangely enough. So there's no denying also more intelligence that came forward from them. There's no denying that the Toorak residents are aware of this, because the officers have given me information about teenage parties in Toorak needing security guards. Some of them have 2 and 3 very expensive security guards from security companies to go to parties of not very many teenagers, 14 to 16-year-old parties. And there's only about 20 kids there, and they're in homes that have security, and they're gated and all that kind of stuff. So why would they need those security guards? Well, they need them for when the teens leave the party and head out into the streets.
Want to make sure they get into their parents' cars safely.
Yeah. So the fact that that's being booked and used just so these kids can be escorted to their parents' waiting cars tells you that that's a very real problem.
Yeah.
Which shows now it is, Melbourne-wide. It's all the way across, right? And obviously I'm not happy for the people of Toorak that they're facing that. But I think that's important to say so that we're not just demonising particular areas of town. So in studio today, we do have a father of a teenage boy who was home alone at the time that some youths entered his house on a home invasion. it's already been on Channel 7 News. This is not an exclusive that we're doing here, but we do want to talk to the father about the after effects of that. But first of all, I want you to listen to a phone call I had, and this is from a Berwick mum, and she has a friend with a teenage son who was the victim of Sudanese gang crime. He was beaten. And she contacted me because it's had a very, very adverse effect on this young man's life moving forward. So let's hear from this lovely mum. Hi, Jenny, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So you're a mum from the Berwick area, that's right, isn't it?
Yes, I am.
And you have a friend, quite a close friend, who used to live in Berwick and moved to the west. And obviously,
Yes.
Jason Wood MP did say last week that the African gang crime seems to be centric on the far east and the far west. Could you tell me about this Croatian teenager that had an unfortunate incident out there in the west?
Okay, well, he's not Croatian born, but his family's Croatian, so he's an Australian boy. And he was at a party, a 14-year-old party, fully supervised, and he was attacked upon leaving by a gang of 10 African Australian or African children or teenagers. And he was pretty severely beaten. His phone was stolen, his watch was stolen, his wallet and bag was stolen. So he was kicked in the head several times. His mother took him to the Royal Children's to get looked over, and he was quite severely beaten. I don't think that there's any long-term injuries other than the mental state that he's now in. 2 boys were arrested because they found his phone in one of their houses, and another boy admitted to kicking his head in. However, the police don't seem to think that there'll be many consequences for those 2 boys. Now, the young boy that was beaten is 14. His parents have decided that he's so severely distressed. He's quite a lovely boy, and he's just so stressed all the time that they're going to send him back to Croatia for a month to live with family so he can relax a little bit.
Oh, that's so sad. I find that very upsetting. So the long-term damage for him was psychological, of course, as it would be. I think that's one of the things that upsets me about this scenario is because physical scars and injuries heal so quickly that, it all tends to be forgotten. But it's quite good that there were arrests made in that case. I'm quite pleased.
Not very common.
Yeah, I'm quite pleased to hear about that. Okay, well, stay with us, Jenny, because we're talking about other epicenters to do with this gang crime, and I'm sure that will interest you.
Sure.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that was one of our Berwick mums. Thank you for contacting me with that story. Just another one. There's so many. Literally, I've been contacted by hundreds of people. And now we've got the good kids moving out, right? This is what's happening. We're importing violence and criminality, and the good people are moving out or moving suburb, and it's crazy to me because I remember in the UK that, and it's still the case, in order to move your family and immigrate to Australia, which everybody wants to do, this is the number one destination, you've got people in the UK running around training in jobs they don't want to do, like nursing and plumbing, because we were told that's what you want in Australia. You only want people who are going to contribute to society. And so there are people in the UK, one couple I know in Scotland, right, have been waiting for 2.5 years, and they were going to come with the mother-in-law because she wanted to retire out here, and the mother-in-law has died waiting to come here.
Yep.
So they will come, but they're on a waiting list. So, the situation is completely out of hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the news in a moment, and then afterwards we'll speak to Dean, and he is the father of the teenage boy that we mentioned earlier, who was home alone during a home invasion.
This is That Radio Show on SEN+.
It sure is. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about our gang issues that we've got here in Melbourne, and I mentioned that we'd be talking to a father of a teenage boy who was home alone, actually, when intruders went into his house. How are you, Dean?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. So you contacted me after the story went viral last week, and your story's actually already been on the Channel 7 News, so it's not an exclusive, but it's very relative to what else is going on in the area. Can you tell us what you remember about that day?
Oh, well, yeah, it was terrifying, really. I went out with a few friends that were down from Canberra, and my son, who's 16, and he's quite a big kid, so he wants his independence. And I asked him if he wanted to come, and he said, "No, Dad, I'm okay, I'll stay home." And like normally, because I'm such a helicopter dad, like I said earlier, I've always been reluctant to leave him even in the car. Even if I went into the shopping centre, I'd argue with him to say, "Well, you can't stay in the car, it's not safe." And then, he finally won the day, and I let him stay home. And, I got a call around about, 9:30, 10:15 that night. And, it was from my neighbour. And I knew that the second that my neighbour called me, he doesn't call me all the time, but I knew that when he called me, something was wrong. And
wow. So were the police at your house? Is that why?
No, my son ran next door after they left. After I left the house, so he was hysterical. So
really?
I could hear him in the background, and it's sort of a bit haunting.
Yeah.
Which is the last thing you expect, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
To have strangers break into your house.
Oh, anyone. Like, I do remember the last thing I said to him is, make sure you don't open the door for anyone.
Yeah.
And so I think I saw in the news clip that he said he was in the laundry when he realised that the laundry door was a bit ajar, and then suddenly they were in the room, right?
No, well, he was sitting in our lounge room watching the footy, watching your beloved Melbourne play. Well, they lost. And
what's new?
and he just turned around. He heard a noise. They've come in through the laundry door and just heard the door open and turned around, and there was 3 Sudanese kids standing about a metre from him.
You must be so grateful that it wasn't worse, because I know, I think yesterday or the day before, 2 boys about that age were king hit and attacked in Mornington, weren't they? And they're in the Alfred Hospital now. So very lucky that they didn't do anything to him, isn't it?
Oh, that sort of haunts me a little. I try not to think about it.
Is it because he just handed everything over? Do you think they left him alone?
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I've got a reasonable sized house, and whether it was targeted or not, I'm not too sure. Whether it was a random thing or they were just walking down the street and said, "Oh, there's a house, I'm going to rob it." So it's hard to know their psyche, but well, he gave the guys all of his work money. He works because he's at school, and he saved about $1,500 with his work money, and it was really well hidden. I couldn't even find it if I wanted to.
But he just went straight for it to keep the peace.
Well, it was upstairs, so he had to lead the guys through the house, through my bedroom, and through the spare room, and everywhere, and they went through everything.
I mean, he must have been scared at that point, because my instincts would be to not even mention it, like to not.
Well.
But if you're terrified,
think they left not long after he handed them the cash. I think the cash was the winner. So
I bet they did.
They stole his gaming computer and
laptop and stuff, right?
Absolutely. So, went into his school bag and stole everything, and just
God, ruthless.
I think in other home invasions we've had news of people have broken in. They've got gifts, they've got car keys, and they still go and hurt the inhabitants.
Yeah.
So
that's something I want to think about. No, like I said, if I think about the what if, that's the thing that. Yeah, and that's the after effect, which obviously they have no consideration for, is the effect it has on even my mum, who lives in Pakenham. There's a lot of this happening down her area, and she's petrified. So
do you think he's forever changed following this event? Are you changed at home with security? And
I am. I am, yeah. Not that I'm naive to the fact that there are gangs running around, and and there are bad people in every culture. Let's be honest. But I do. Yeah, I think twice about things now.
But 20 years ago, when I was here in the 90s in Australia, it wasn't like this, was it? I had no fear of this kind of crime. This is a new thing, relatively new, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not a small guy, and I don't think, and I live about a kilometre from the train station, and I'm not even sure whether I would walk home by myself.
Yeah.
Just for the what if factor.
It's weird, because I was talking to another barrack mum about it, and she said one of her children was actually at that party where the gang rocked up last week, and she said, "I think it's time to move." And I said, "Yeah, but where?" Because it's happening everywhere, right? You can't demonise a suburb, and that's why I brought the news about Toorak, because it's everywhere.
Security in this city is the issue that our politicians need to come to, and they don't. We have to call them, if they're African Australian gangs, we have to call it what it is.
Or British, or whatever they are.
Or whatever they are.
Yeah. Because, if British people came here, if you look at a parallel, like if British people came here and decided they weren't going to abide the laws on the road, let's say, as drivers, it's not like that in our country, so we're not going to abide by the laws and we're going to drive through red lights. There'd be chaos, and you'd say, well, they can't be on the roads. We have to get those British people off the roads. So if you've got another demographic that's coming over and saying, no, we're not going to abide by law and order, then something has to be done about it. Now, I know from the contacts I've got that the police feel like their hands are tied. It's very difficult with the courts, and primarily because everyone's trying to be PC. So let's throw PC out the window and let's just get on the side of right, and let's get on the side of law and order, because if there are laws in place for the rest of us, the laws have to be in place for everybody. All right, thank you, Dean, for joining us today. I really, really appreciate that.